about deep sea oil exploration in New Zealand.
Leave us to table that document. Is there any objection? There is objection. Question number 10, Phil Twyford.
Mr. Speaker, my question is for the Minister of Transport. Does he stand by his statement that it is ridiculous for Auckland Council to try and go ahead with plans to charge motorists to use the city's roads?
The Honourable Jerry Brownlee.
Mr. Speaker, yes, because the Crown owns the State Highway Network, which carries 35% of the vehicle kilometres travelled in Auckland. And I note also that last week, Mr. Speaker, the member said it would be an unfair imposition on ordinary working Aucklanders.
Phil Twyford.
Supplementary. Why did he rule out even considering Auckland's ideas for making up his government's shortfall in transport funding when the government's own response to the plan in February this year said the Auckland Council faces similar fiscal constraints to the government, and so it would make sense for the Council to consider new approaches to funding the infrastructure required to deliver Auckland's spatial plan objectives?
The Honourable Jerry Brownlee.
Mr. Speaker, the member shouldn't assume that his own knowledge of these things puts the limits around my thinking about the way in which the Auckland Council might look to fund these things. What I would note, though, is that the member himself has previously said that such charges would be an imposition on ordinary working New Zealanders. He also, just a week or so ago, suggested that the increases for motorists when it came to road user charges were inappropriate. Mr. Speaker, I think what the Labor Party needs to do is say what they'll do rather than what they'll not do.
Supplementary, Mr. Speaker. Why did he rule out even listening to Auckland's alternative funding options when the government's own... Sorry, let me say that again, sir. When for funding infrastructure like the additional harbour crossing over the Waitemata, when the government's own transport agency says that it will be one of this country's most expensive infrastructure projects, and that this means that a range of options beyond the National Land Transport Fund should be considered.
The Honourable Jerry Brownlee.
Mr. Speaker, I think far from ruling anything out, I've simply made it clear that the idea that Auckland City Council would impose charges without consideration of government was not appropriate, ridiculous in fact. And I want to report to the House, sir, that we had a very good meeting last week with the Auckland Council. A number of ministers attended. Transport was obviously on the agenda, and we do have agreement to continue dialogue on how Auckland's long-term problems might be solved with some better roading projects.
Phil Twyford.
Supplementary. Isn't it arrogant to be ruling options in or out when it was his government that abolished the regional fuel tax, which would have funded much of Auckland's transport plans, when it forced Auckland Council to borrow $500 million to pay for the electric trains, when it went cap in hand to Auckland Council asking for bridging finance because the government's own funding for Auckland roads ran out, all the while refusing to support the popular and essential City Rail link?
The Honourable Jerry Brownlee.
Mr. Speaker, I'd take big issue with the suggestion that the City Rail link is useful or popular.
Question number 11, Chris Ockenvold.